How's it going, everybody? This is Jeremy for Germ Bug Photography, and today I kind of wanted to do a video on the on a couple of film cameras that I have that are out of the 1950s, from a kind of little known company out of Germany, Ihagee. It's the Exa and its bigger brother, the Exakta. Um, these are great little 35 millimeter cameras. Um, They solidly built out of Dresden. Ihagee themselves were a company that was started in the early 20th century in Germany. Started making cameras. Were not too well known in the mid 1930s. They actually came out with the Exacta, actually called the Kind Exacta, in I believe 1936, which was the actual first uh, produced SLR, first normally produced SLR in the world. Um, this Exacta that I have here is a VX model, which was made from 1953 to 1956. Uh, this was their kind of their pro line, I guess. Their higher end 35 millimeter. Um, it had a faster shutter speed and a timer and kind of a few things that the Exa didn't have. The Exa came out actually in 1951. This was kind of their entry level SLR. This Exa here is the called the version 0. It's the first incarnation of it. This was from 1951 here, and a few of the limitations: it has a few less dials on it. The shutter speed only goes up to 1/150th of a second, and I'll kind of get into that a little more as to a few of the differences between these two. But like I said, these great cameras, you pick them up. Both of these do well. This one was actually a gift from an estate sale. The Exacta that I bought was actually off of eBay for less than $100. Lenses are real cheap, so we'll take a closer look at these now. All right, guys, so let's take a closer look at the Exa and the Exacta. You'll have to excuse the mess on my desk here. I've kind of had I was given another camera here, actually a Viceroy Auto 35. It's having a bit of issue with the aperture, and so I'm kind of taking it apart. But unfortunately, figured out that I didn't have a spanner wrench, which was necessary to get the top plate off. So, waiting on that to show up. But the Exacta here was more of their professional model, for a few reasons. One of which was a big reason on this between the Exacta and the Exa is the shutter speed. It's got a manual wind on it, just like anything else, but the shutter speed actually goes from 1/25th of a second all the way up to, if you can see it here, 1/1000th of a second. They actually, this one here, bought off the internet. I mean, still works fine. These things are all mechanical. These are really hard, metal, well-built cameras out of Germany. Sorry, Russia. uh, but the big thing was the 1/1000th of a second on these. Also, it has also has bulb as well as a timer that can go all the way up to 12 seconds. Over here can be set to 12 seconds on that. Another big thing with with actually all the Ihagee Exas and Exactas is the fact that these cameras not only had interchangeable lenses, which I'll take this lens off here. This is actually a 50 millimeter f2.8 out of Meyer Optic. But not only do they have removable lenses, but actually the viewfinders on the Exas and the Exactas from about 1950-ish on, actually the viewfinders were removable. So if I could hit this little release up here, I can take and remove the actual viewfinder. Now the viewfinder on this is one I bought online. The actual original viewfinder is a waist level viewfinder. These were actually, these are actually pretty nice. The viewfinders on these, I'm kind of surprised at how nice they are for waist level viewfinders. It has a simple release on the back, pops right open. Nice, big viewfinder in there. Has a mirror. The mirror on there, and also the sport, the shoot through, if you use that for just framing. But that's kind of a big thing, because not only the Exaktas have this, but the Exas as well. The Exas also have the removable viewfinder as well as the lens, so it's really nice that you can interchange these. The Exakta mount, the Exa Exakta mount, is actually made from the 30s all the way up to about 1970. So you have more than 30 years worth of lenses, and so there are literally thousands of lenses. Companies, tons of companies made them. Big ones are actually Carl Zeiss. There are Carl Zeiss made quite a bit. The 75 millimeter 1.5 Biotar from Carl Zeiss is one of the highest coveted lens, and a mint condition one of those will cost you well over $1,000. So, but because they made so many lenses, just like this Meyer optic, this is a 28 or 50 millimeter f2.8. On my Exa here, I have a Mosler, which is a 35 millimeter f2.8. Small, well-built lenses with, pretty fast shutter speeds. These lenses were $50. So great lenses, are, easy to find and, cheap and affordable. If you notice on this 50, which is a little different, the 35 here, they're all manual aperture, of course, manual focus, manual aperture. But on the 35 here, you do not have what is this, it's kind of like an auto aperture, I guess. So pretty much, it's an SLR, you're looking through the lens. So of course, when you close down that shutter, or that aperture, it gets a lot darker through the viewfinder. So with this lens here, because of the way it is, you can set your aperture all the way up to f22, and the aperture itself doesn't close until you hit this release. So what's nice is while you're framing, you can still see through the lens as bright as it is if it's set for f2.8. And then when you hit this, it closes that aperture down. And the way they had it set up, kind of a little ingenious way of having it set up, is when it's attached to the camera, whether it's an Exa or an Exakta, that button is right over top of your shutter button, so it won't close down until you go to hit the shutter button, and you just continue to press until it pops your shutter. So it's actually a really nice feature. Also on this this Exakta, doesn't have it on the Exa itself, but on this Exakta it also has the cover for the shutter, so keep you from accidentally pressing it. Unfortunately, this Exa doesn't, and I've taken a few black pictures with lens caps or taken it out of the bag, so I've learned not to advance the shutter until I really need to take a picture. Another big difference between the Exakta and the Exa, like I was talking about earlier, was the shutter speed. And the reason for that is, with this Exa, let me wind this open, and then wind this. The Exa and the Exakta, the Exa does not have a shutter curtain. It's actually using the mirror as the shutter. So because of that, it could only shoot up to 1/150th of a second, whereas the Exakta, could be shot all the way up to 1/1000th of a second because it's a curtain. So it's an interesting design for the time, to have that mirror as your curtain. But of course, there was limitations with the simple fact that you couldn't shoot really fast. So this Exakta here, as you can see through the back, if I can, well, you have to, this one actually has a manual lock on it, so as long as that viewfinder on this waist level is closed, it won't allow you to shut it. So once you open it up, you can shoot it. And as you can see, it's a mirror, and so it doesn't go all that fast. That's a 1/150th of a second there. That's as fast as it goes. But inside is standard as far as any 35. The difference is here again. You know, you don't have the nice thumb winder. You have to actually manually turn this, and actually the dial in here is something I've noticed as well is with actually both of these, the mirror isn't a auto return, so once it shoots, you don't have any view through here until, of course, you manually wind to your next frame. So nothing there. I don't know if you could see it or not, but once you wind it, the mirror kicks back, and then you can go ahead and look through there again. So like I said, there was very little features on this, but the Exa was actually about 1/3 of the price of the Exakta. So it was kind of an entry-level SLR and kind of a good idea in the 1950s. From what I've heard, you know, and what I've read, the Exakta was, you know, 3 to 4 months salary of the average person. So the Exa was a lot cheaper and, you know, was, you know, a lot more accessible to the average person. On this Exa here, of course, manual film counter. You actually have to, you know, when you set it, you have to actually take your finger and push down on here and just kind of turn it yourself. And release button for rewinding. You simply hold down the button, release. Like I said, there's your drive kind of stick shift shutter speeds from bulb 1/25th all the way up to 1/150th. So, like I said, very simple camera. I've taken a couple rolls so far. Unfortunately, I haven't gotten them developed. So looking forward to that. It does have a couple sync ports on the side here for the older flashes and a tripod mount. And unfortunately, this one, the leatherette was coming off, so kind of lost some of the leatherette, but a little shiny on the back, but it's okay. The Exakta, which I haven't gotten to play with just yet, I'm really looking forward to taking this out. You know, like I said, with the shutter speeds and everything like that. Another little side note feature, when you open this thing up, you have to open and twist from the bottom. On this, you see the shutter curtain and everything. This is something else that's kind of interesting, which is this little shaft here with the thing at the bottom. When you twist this, it unlocks this, and it's like a guillotine almost. It's a slight blade in here, and you could actually use this. And what the feature was on that apparently was if you had film in here that you needed to get developed, and you didn't want to burn through a whole roll, you could, you know, take this, you could slice through the roll. Of course, you know, dark room or film bag or something, you would have to actually open this up to take out the roll, you know, the shots you've already taken. But, you know, it was a great way to not have to burn through the whole roll just to take out the film to get it developed. So, pretty interesting, you know, feature. I guess. I don't know how much that would be used, but I mean, I guess if you're, you know, somebody was shooting for the press or something and you didn't want to burn a roll, I guess you could. Like I said, you know, love the shutter on this thing. I know people have talked about as well on these that it's really interesting. They're kind of reverse, where you put in your new roll here and your take ups over there on these. So, you know, it's kind of a reverse of mostly they're left to right instead of right to left, but that's, you know, it's something about Ihagee, and the Exa is the same way, and actually it's kind of, even the shutter button itself's on the left. It's easy to get used to. Not really, you know, these, you know, you're not out taking fast shots with these. They're, you know, it's kind of a, you know, leisurely pace when you take photos with these things. One other thing that's kind of interesting, you probably can't see it, but imprinted in the leatherette here, it says made in Germany, and then over here says it's got a stamp that says USSR occupied. Like I said, this is from 1953 to 55. This was East German, and so of course that was USSR occupied after World War II. So yeah, kind of a little interesting thing there as well. But like I said, these are great little cameras. You know, they're extremely well built lenses, easy to find. This Exa, when I got it, it came with a 50 millimeter f2.9. Unfortunately, this is really hazed over, so it's not really usable. But it has a really nice 100 millimeter f4.5 on this, and it's really nice, really clean. Taking some shots with that. Actually, I've gotten a few mounts. Like this here is a Exa to Pentax mount. And so I can mount these lenses on my Pentax K1000, and been able to see what they can really do. And they're, they're really nice lenses. I mean, especially, and like I said, $50 or so for the lenses, $100 or so for the cameras, just depending on the condition you get them in. A major thing is just the shutter, making sure the shutter works on them. Like I said, they're really heavy built metal, cameras. And so, I've really enjoyed them, and hoping to, can't wait to get these film developed, and check out some of the stuff that's been taken out of both of these cameras. So I hope y'all have enjoyed this little video about the Exakta and the Exa, and like and let me know what you think, and if you have any questions. So thanks again, and take it easy.